Hello everyone, and welcome to the Distinct Mastering YouTube channel. My name is Freddie. Today's video is going to be a bit different from the norm. I recently stumbled across a cool YouTube video and thought about creating a video similar to it and explaining some of the trials and tribulations that we go through as music producers. So if you're ever feeling stuck, not sure how to be creative, and wondering how you can go from amateur to pro, this video is for you. Let's get into it. Okay, I recently stumbled across this YouTube video and it really got my mind thinking, because as a younger producer years and years ago, I always had these kind of roadblocks, or writer's block as they'd call it. And I'm sure you've all been there. I have friends that personally have these same problems. And what this video talks about is the difference between amateurs and professionals. In short, the amateur doesn't have any inspiration. They always have an excuse. I'll work on music or whatever it is, the art the next day, whatever kind of art, writing, music, could be anything, painting. But we all know as music producers, we've all said that, especially if you're young, you're not feeling it, you're tired, you want to do something else. Sure, we've all been there. But if you don't have that inspiration and you use that as a crutch or an excuse and you say you're going to work on it tomorrow, it hinders you more than you think. And the number one thing that the professional thinks about is maybe they don't have inspiration, maybe I don't have inspiration, but I sit down and I write. And the inspiration will come from that me sitting down and the act of doing it. I'm good enough at this point as a music producer that I will find something to inspire me. I also thought to add to this video how bad habits can compile. The more that you use these excuses and you allow this type of behavior to happen as a music producer, the more habits you're forming to not produce. And if our whole goal is to produce music, then you're really hurting yourself. There's this cool book that my friend passed over to me, I'd say about a year or two ago, called The One Thing. I'll leave you a link to that below in the description so you could check it out. Pretty interesting book. It talks about that one important thing that you need to do every day. We've all heard the common thing, putting in the 10,000 hours gets you to be a professional. And yes, that's true. Now, I do want to reference this book because I thought it ties very well into this video. According to the book, on average, it takes 2 months for a habit to form. Whether that be good or whether that be bad, that's up to you. If you're always using the negative excuses, you could be forming bad habits. Now, what this book talks about is doing the most important thing every single day. Let me take myself as an example. I try to produce music every single day. Some days I get busy, some days I'm not at the studio every single day, but I still try to do it from my home studio. Even if it's 30 minutes a day, it still counts. Some days I'm producing 6 hours a day. Some days I produce 2 hours a day. Whatever it is, it's still adding to that one thing daily. The book also talks about getting better 1% every single day. So that could be forming good habits, whether that's organizing your sound library, doing some ear training, taking some educational courses, whatever it is. It talks about habit stacking and trying to put one habit after another. So for me, when I get into the studio, I sit down and I do some common things that I do every couple times a week, and then I get to work on music. Sometimes I got to record these videos and there's things that happen in between, but every single day I try to at least make music and get 1% better every single day. What it allows me to do is get good at what I'm doing and form good habits. And don't get me wrong, there is some days when the last thing I want to do is make music or I feel inspired. But I'll tell you what, some of my best tracks have come from those days just by sitting down and writing and getting creative. Even if I don't feel creative, the creativity will flow. And that is the difference between a professional and an amateur. Now you can imagine over a long period of time, doing this daily will really have some long-term results. And I can attest that it does. I want to talk about 6 myths and lies that the book The One Thing discusses in this video. The first myth and lie is that everything matters equally. In today's day and age, it may feel like everything is coming at us with social media. I got to do this post. I got to do that. I got to make music. I got to do these 18 other things. Yes, that's very true, but try to narrow that focus into the most important thing. What are the most important things that you can do to get to the end result and to get better, that 1% better every single day? They say, and this book also mentions this, the 80-20 rule. 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. Think about that for a moment. I'll repeat it. 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. So what of your efforts can you put in to get yourself those 80% results? The other thing that I'd recommend that you do, and the book also mentions that you do, is focus on that one thing as one of the first things you do every day. So if it's writing music or writing a book or poetry or painting a picture, that should be one of the most important things you do daily while your mind is fresh. Life gets in the way. It all happens to us. You might have a family day, whatever. I might be on the road touring as a DJ, and I may miss a day, but I try to get back on it that next day. So forming good habits, trying to get 1% better every day, all important. Myth number 2, we were always taught growing up in our day and age to multitask, especially in the days of computers. Well, when you multitask, you're shifting your focus and you're not allowing your mind to get into what they call a flow state. And that is the whole goal of a creative, is to get into a flow state to where everything else, nothing matters, and you're just so in tune with the creative process. Even your phone can be a distraction, and if you're constantly checking your phone, that's basically considered multitasking. So what I personally like to do as a music producer is I follow something called the Pomodoro technique. And you can find all kinds of Pomodoro timers online. There's even mobile phone apps, and there's even an Ableton Max for Live device that I found. And I'll leave you a link to my video on the Pomodoro timer for Ableton Live down below. If you want to learn more about how this works, basically you work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. You do those 3 times, and on the 4th time, you take a bit longer of a break. On the 4th one, you take a 10 or 15-minute break, and what it's supposed to do is keep your mind fresh. And I find that it gets me into a flow state, and I can really compartmentalize my time while staying fresh and staying creative. During those 25-minute periods, I try to shut everything out. Email, phone. I don't have notifications on my phone when I'm producing music, and if something important comes in, okay, I might get derailed, but I try to get right back into that flow state. The third myth that the one thing talks about is having a disciplined life. Yes, it's important to have a disciplined life. We've been hearing that since we were kids. But you're going to have some moments where you're just not as disciplined. So putting those habits in place, getting that one thing done every day at the beginning of the day or near the beginning of the day, or even if it's just 30 minutes a day, it's still getting you towards that 1% better every day goal. Having a disciplined life also includes that habit stacking that the book talks about. When you get into the studio, maybe you do X, Y, and Z before you start creating music, or maybe you create music and then you do X, Y, and Z. That are going to be goals to help you get better every single day. So having a disciplined life is part of the game, but you need to have a work-life balance and have a little bit of times where you're not as disciplined. But to be disciplined, just put in that 20% effort to get 80% of the results. So the 4th myth that the book talks about is willpower is always on will call. Basically what this book is saying is that willpower is no different from, say, your cell phone. As you go about your day, your phone depletes, and that's the same thing that happens to our willpower. Let's use the example of the gym. If you work out, one of the best things that you can do is to work out first thing in the morning when you wake up, get it out of the way. That way it's done. You've got all that energy from working out all throughout the day that you can use towards whatever you got to do that day. And that is the concept of willpower. As the day progresses, you're less likely to get into the gym. Let's say you're at a party and you are trying not to drink or you don't want to eat the sweets. The longer you stay at that party, the more and more your willpower is going to give in. And that is the theory behind the willpower. So if you are supposed to be producing music every single day and you follow this principle of the willpower, then one of the most important things you can do, like I said before, is get the music production done near the beginning of the day. So the fifth myth that the book talks about is having a balanced life. They actually recommend having a counterbalanced life. So you have some balance and you have some counterbalance. What does that mean, you might ask? Well, like I said, getting those one things done, setting designated times to be creative or make music or whatever it is that you need to do, and then offsetting that with some counterbalance. You've heard the saying, live a little, and everybody should have that. Some people also, as musicians, consider that's where they go and get their inspiration. They don't find their inspiration in the studio. They go out and they seek inspiration outside, and they bring those life experiences into the studio. So having some counterbalance is good. And the sixth myth that the book talks about is big is bad. Setting big goals and unrealistic expectations can really set you up for disappointment and failure. Setting small, more realistic goals can, on the other hand, give you a sense of achievement and make you feel rewarded. So, as mentioned before, when I use the Pomodoro technique and the Pomodoro timer, I try to set goals for that 25 minutes. Let's say I'm working on a track and I've got most of the track built out. I then will say, okay, in this next 25 minutes in my head, I'll focus on the effects and I'll try to build out all the effects, and I give myself a set parameter. Other types of small goals that you could set might be, organize your sound library over the course of the next month or year or whatever that might be. Or it might be, I want to produce 2 tracks this week. Setting small, realistic goals also gives you deadlines and forces you to finish things up. Sometimes if you let projects linger and you don't have these types of deadlines, you might just keep working on these projects over and over and over and over. And we've all been there. If that's you, then you need to stop. So in short, I want to go back to the video that I mentioned at the beginning. I highly recommend you check it out, because what it does talk about is it talks about the professional sitting down to create. Not having inspiration is the amateur. I'll try to produce tomorrow. But the professional will sit down and make music, and the creativity will come. If you'd like to get to this level, then what do you need to do? You need to do it every single day. Whether that be 30 minutes a day, 1 hour a day, 6 hours a day, at least you put in the effort to try to get 1% better every day. Lastly, I'd like to add, if you want to check out the video on the Pomodoro technique that I use, I'll leave you a link up above so you can check that out. If you enjoyed this content, or if you have any questions, or if you just want to share links to your music, shoot me a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you're working on. And if you enjoyed this content, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and the bell notification will keep you up to date. My name is Freddie from Distinct Mastering, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.